Okay, you're ready.
All right, awesome. Thank you all for joining us this evening. So this week I really wanted to talk about a portion of Christianity that's always hit me really hard, and I think it's one of the biggest things we struggle with, and that is forgiveness. Forgiveness of all sorts, of forgiving people who greatly wronged us or wronged somebody we love, but also in little ways, the people that frustrate us or maybe do something that bothers us, and we kind of have to let that go. And first, I want to talk about what really forgiveness means. I don't want to keep saying forgiveness and it be misconstrued, and I will explain it the same way one of my favorite books, The Shack, does. The movie came out this year. It's amazing. And that is that forgiveness does not excuse the act. It does not say that what they did was okay, and it also doesn't mean that you're forgetting what happened. It simply means that you're letting go of a person's throat, and you're letting go and letting yourself and that person kind of move on from what has happened. And I really want to talk about tonight why exactly that is important, especially in Christianity in our daily lives. So like I said, there was something in the news this past weekend. It was very tragic. If you heard about, his name was Robert Godwin Sr., and he was a gentleman who was shot and killed on Sunday as he was going to a family event. He was shot by a stranger. It was obviously very tragic. But what I found interesting was the news story about this. They were interviewing his family, and what you usually expect to hear from these families is, how they're suffering and they're just, frozen by grief. But instead, this family talked about the amazing teachings of their father and grandfather about God and God's great forgiveness. And his daughter said this about the shooter: "I hold no animosity in my heart against this man, because I know that he is a sick individual. I feel sadness in my heart for him." And she also talked a lot about his family, because when he was caught, I think yesterday, maybe it was Monday, he had committed suicide, and so she talked a lot about his family and how she really felt what they were going through right now. And I read this, and I was just so overcome with this great feeling of, I could not believe that somebody could say that, because if I was put in that position, I would love to say that I'd be this forgiving person and I'd be able to be happy and loving, but I really don't think so. Sometimes really terrible things happen to really good people, innocent people, and I don't think we are supposed to immediately move on, and obviously this woman was just amazing, and her teachings obviously made her that way, but it is important that we do eventually let go of that grudge and that grief. And so I'm going to talk about a little why that's important. First, I want to talk about what impact it has on us when we hold on to a grudge and we do not learn to forgive. And I know I'm coming from a very serious case, obviously, but also just talking about, little kind of petty things that we hold against people. And a lot of times it's things that they don't even know that upset us. They said something in passing, or they posted a terrible picture of you on Facebook or something, and you're just really upset with them. Or maybe sometimes you meet somebody and the first impression is just bad, and you're like, oh my gosh, I do not want to have to see that person again. But the thing about that is you're only hurting yourself. By carrying this anger and this bitterness, as the scripture describes, it's only poisoning yourself and your soul. And I titled this message, Heart of Holiness, because I truly believe that that's what God wants us to live with. And by heart of holiness, I mean a free soul, a soul that is loving and compassionate. And by holding on to these angers inside us, it is only poisoning us. And ultimately, we are wasting God's resources, which is us, if you think about it. God put us on this earth to spread love and spread his word. And holding on to this evil, dark anger, it doesn't do that, right? And a lot of times when I've sat and thought about forgiveness, I've struggled with it because, I can feel in myself when I'm mad at somebody that it does hurt me. But it's almost like a selfish reason to let it go, I guess. And I think I'm doing this great, awesome goodness by holding on to it, but I'm not. Instead, I'm holding something back from God. I'm holding back times of love that I could go and talk about how much I love somebody or something like that because I'm mad. Another reason is that it isn't our job to judge whether or not somebody did this great disservice and deserves all of our anger towards. Because as I said, God put us on this earth to be loving creatures, to be compassionate, and to spread his word. And as the scripture says, do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. And basically that just means, and I think the Bible, when I was reading one of the verses, it kind of is more clearly, basically, don't make God sad because you're upset. And he didn't put you here for that. And I think sometimes we run around trying to point fingers at like, oh my gosh, this person is just terrible because they did this and this to me, and they did this to this person. But why is that our job? It's not. We're not supposed to judge people. We're not supposed to sit around and talk about whether someone is good or bad just based on our own experiences of them. It's not our job. And eventually, that person will be judged for all they have done and whether or not they have asked for forgiveness for those sins. But again, it's not our place. So we have to let it go. And I know this is a lot to ask. Like I said, it's really hard to forgive people. This family has to be an incredible grief. I can't even imagine. So to think about where they are in their lives and the fact that they can so easily just forgive somebody is an amazing story. But I don't think that all of us are able to do that. I know I couldn't do that. It's not an immediate reaction. He doesn't want us to immediately forgive somebody. Especially, maybe we don't feel like they are sorry for it. Are we still supposed to forgive them? And I think it's a lot of our own kind of personal dealings with it. But the big thing is that it is hard. But we have to do it for those reasons. And also, none of us are perfect humans. That's in the nature of being human. We all make mistakes. We all sin. But somebody did forgive us. And somebody does love us despite all those things. And he doesn't want us to be hating on all of his children. That's not cool. So I just wanted to share this message tonight. And I know I kind of want to move on to a time of discussion. But ultimately, it's an interesting topic, I thought, because it ranges so big. Right? This family in desperate grief, was able to forgive this man that they didn't even know that they could hate their entire lives. But also, if you want to think about how you lie in that, think about any time you've met somebody and didn't like them. Think about some time you were talking about maybe so-and-so and you were like, oh, well, they're just a terrible person because they did this and this to me. And that doesn't make you feel good, does it? It feels really ugly. It's really ugly, but it's really hard to forgive people, and ultimately, it's really important because, like I said, it's not, God didn't put us on this earth to run around and yell at each other and badmouth each other, even if somebody really deserves it, because sometimes people are very nice to other people, and you think, oh, well, if they're not being nice to other people, I can just be not nice to them. That's not solving anything. So now, I'll move into a time of discussion. I'm going to bring a chair because I don't really want to stand in front of you all and feel like a teacher or something. I do have a few questions. Okay, does anyone want to talk about what forgiveness means to them? They thought everything I just said was totally wrong. What do you think it entails? I guess what I struggled with honestly was, what does it really mean when you forgive somebody? If you're not saying, oh, what you did was fine, or I'm forgetting what you did, what does that entail exactly? What do you guys think? Anybody? Nobody. Katie, what does forgiveness mean to you?
I think forgiveness for me is just letting go of something that someone else has done to hurt you. And I like what you said, that it's not really necessarily forgetting it, because it's okay to have human emotions. It's okay to still feel angry when you see that person. Well, it's a lot of effort to feel angry when you feel that person, but just thinking in your head, I'm trying to forgive this person, I'm actively trying to forgive this person, is really important. I think that that's something that I honestly struggle with in my life, everyday life actually. I get really mad at people really easily, especially when they don't use their blinkers to turn. So my first response is to be really mad, but I think just being accepting and empathetic is kind of what forgiveness knowing that, like, I think that, like you said, those people, they're grieving, they're having a lot of really real emotions, but they're so empathetic for this other person. Like, this other person is a killer and a murderer, however, he deserves forgiveness and he deserves God's love. And I think that that's honestly what forgiveness is.
I like the way you said that it takes a lot of effort, because ultimately, like, when you think about it, it really takes a lot more effort to be super angry at somebody. Like, it just feels exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, it's like every time you see them, you're just like, oh boy. Like, it's exhausting. So it feels good to let that go. That's a good point. What if the person, I guess, I'm thinking a lot about, forgiveness as if is it a one-way thing where you're forgiving them, but only you know you're forgiving them? Or is it a thing where you need, maybe if it's somebody you're having a person-to-person struggle with, I guess you talk to them. But then the question is, what if it's somebody who isn't sorry? Who you go to and you say, okay, you said this or you did this to me and it really upset me and I really want to forgive you. What if, they're not sorry?
Okay, I think that if your forgiveness is contingent on them forgiving you, it's not real forgiveness. It's just, damage control. Just kind of in my life, the rule of thumb I just believe when I know I've forgiven someone is when I realize that I can smile at that person again and I can do a good deed for that person again without grudging it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or you feel like it's like in the spite, or feeling like it's in spite of something. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I'm that kind of person who, if you wrong me, there ain't no way I can do something for you. But once I get to that point, I've forgiven them, but they don't always forgive me. But I can't, I'll be waiting forever sometimes. That's what my level of forgiveness really is. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's a really good, I like that. That's something I thought about too. It was like, yeah, that's good. That's a good point. What are some different methods we can work on reconciling things within ourselves, and how can we think about things differently in order to forgive people? If you're really upset about something, you're like super struggling with it, what are some ways that you have to sit down or like what are some ways that you use to learn to move on? You're gonna say something?
Yeah, I do that thing where I write like a really angry note and then like crumple it up or rip it up. Ripping it up usually it helps me let out some aggression too. So just like sitting down and being like, I'm really mad at you because you did post this awful photo of me on Facebook and you're not sorry about it and you're not taking it down and I'm trying to find a job and it's awful. And so just being like, writing all those feelings down, getting it out. Sometimes I try and talk to people about what's in the letter, but usually I don't. So then I just rip it up and hope it goes away.
A lot of times what I struggle with is like what I was talking about before, like the first impression. Sometimes I'll meet somebody and I don't know, it's just like they didn't say something mean, but like they just something in them like really irritates me. And every time I see them, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to see them again. And like it's rough. Like the best way I was able to do it is just that like I had to let it go and act like I'm meeting them again for the first time. And like sit down and like try to get to know them, because it is very hard to like not hate somebody, but it's very hard to feel that passionately mean about somebody that you like actually know. So that's a little bit helpful.
I think one of the reasons why forgiveness is so important is because we are designed to be in community with one another, and we are designed to be in relationship with one another. And if forgiveness is not present, then it breaks the relationship, it breaks the community. And so that is one of the reasons why God wants so desperately for us to forgive and to be forgiven, and for us to know that we are forgiven by God. And there's this really beautiful story of this native community that there was a family that one of their members, a beloved uncle, I think it was, or whatever, was murdered by a member of another family in the native community. And family that had experienced the loss, they all got together and they were angry and wanted to retaliate, and were making all of these plans out of this place of anger and hatred. And one member of the family stood up and said, no, this is not what we should do. We need to bring restoration. We need to go, in the Native community, it means something if you give something of worth from your own family to another person. It's a sign of, it's giving, something that's deeply meaningful to you, and it's almost a sacrament, or it's a sacred activity in that community. And so this member of the family instructed everyone to go home and find the thing that means the most to you and bring it. And so they all did. And he said, okay, now you need to take that to this person who committed this crime, because if we, and from then on, this person we will adopt him into our family. He will be part of our community. Because if we don't do that, then the violence will continue and our community will be broken. And so they did that, and then it became this beautiful, beautiful symbolism of reconciliation and community, and brought restoration to the person who committed the crime in a way that in a way that nothing else could have, because it told him, it told the story beautifully of his own sacred work, and he then responded from a place of humility because he had been given this beautiful gift of community and love and grace and forgiveness in a very transformative way. And so it brought healing to everyone. And so I think that's in God's wisdom in designing us. I think that's what I love the story that you brought from the news. Much the same way, I imagine that she's family member understands, as you said, the damage that comes to oneself when you don't offer forgiveness.
My other question, which actually attaches to that, is the person that originally was like, "Hey, no, we should let we should forgive this person." How do we be that person? Because I think sometimes when you maybe are trying to give someone advice and you tell them to forgive a person for doing, it could be something terrible, they see forgiveness as, letting it go, forgetting about it, just like, okay, it's fine, we're gonna let it go. But that's not, I guess I'm gonna use this wrong phrase, but you know what I mean, like they think it's kind of condoning what happened. So how do we explain to people that maybe don't understand forgiveness in the, I guess, Christian sense? How do we explain that to them and maybe phrase it differently?
I think part of it is timing, because you can't go up to someone right after an accident and be like, you gotta forgive them, because they have the right to be mad for a minute. That's totally okay, but after a little bit, they need to realize it's time to forgive, because it's not good to hold on to the anger. But it's okay to feel anger in the moment.
I think, what's when you just sit there, like, Els had something to say, but one of the things that I have found to be true in my life is that, well, if you've ever personally experienced deep hurt on a deep personal level, and you think about what that feels like, and then you think about times that you maybe have hurt someone else, you have this understanding of really never wanting to be the source of that kind of pain for someone else. And so from that, you see how powerful it is then to be forgiven and to forgive another person, because when you don't forgive, you're actually you're causing pain to yourself, but in some way you're reciprocating the cycle of pain and violence.
Well, kind of tying off of that, I don't know if this is going to make any sense in my little mind, but here goes. I think if when we forgive someone and all we consider that to be is just dropping it, I don't think it's forgiveness at all. You know, if you want to use Jesus as the example, he could have just forgotten it, everything that we did, but that wasn't good enough for him. He took all of our sins on and died in the most gruesome way possible. He didn't have to do that. But he chose to, because he knew that just forgetting it, covering our sins like the Jewish tradition they did, that wasn't going to be good enough anymore. It had to get fixed. And I think we can use that as a metaphor for our own personal relationships. When something goes awry, you can cover it for a while, you can drop it. But unless you really resolve it, it's always going to be there. Even if it's 30 years down the road, you finally dropped it. You know what I mean?
And I did also want to kind of flip the script a little bit and talk about how we ask for forgiveness of either, asking the person we've wronged for forgiveness or asking, God for forgiveness when we do something wrong. Because like I said, we are all human. I don't want it to seem like we're all going to sit and talk about, when people do things wrong against us, what do we do? When we do something wrong, and I've been in the case where maybe I said something and it was totally out of place and I shouldn't have said it, and I immediately felt so terrible, and I asked them for forgiveness. I said, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have said it. And when they I don't remember exactly what happened, but basically they weren't able to forgive me right away. And it does not feel good when you're on this ledge of oh my gosh, I feel terrible, and I want them to forgive me so bad, but then you have to think, would I forgive somebody that fast? I don't know. So I guess what Susan was saying about thinking about you have to forgive people because you're continuing the cycle if you don't, and then when you do something wrong, so that's an interesting thing to put it as. So I did think about that as well.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to the break in the relationship because, from your example, I think it sounded like there was some sort of there was an existing relationship, and because of what you said, it kind of broke it. And so, part of what you were experiencing was that loss, and that separation, that the comment caused. And so, to not have the forgiveness meant that the relationship stayed in some state of brokenness. And so, that's a damaging condition, and that's part of, as relational people, that's why we feel that, or we feel that sting.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to pose?